The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or to view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Assessment for this class was probably the hardest thing for me, at least. How to assign a fair grade to students, because at the end of the day, they're getting a grade for this. And it wasn't going to be an A for effort type of thing. It was actually really hard because anything that requires creative effort, you just, I talked to you about this for a long time, like, you don't want to crap on people's creative efforts, even if it's just not very good. Like, it's really good. Jamie and I talked a lot about this, but initially the rubric was very plastic elements based, like, is this well lit? Can you hear the audio okay? And we just kind of scrapped that and really went with, there were 4 sort of principles to the class that I talked about on the first day, which was like spark, does it foster curiosity? And that was like a big theme that went through every single assignment, and how it manifested changed assignment to assignment. You can see it on the rubric. Kill your darlings, like, is it concise enough? There were a couple others. So that's how we approached grading. And we assigned them raw numerical scores. And we didn't have like an A is 20, a B is 10 or 15. It was, in progress is from 0 to 5, and like, steps moving forward was like 5 to 10, and then mastery was like 10 to 15, for instance. So they would get numerical grade feedback. We gave a lot of weight to their daily reflections so that not everyone in the class would end up with a C.
I have a question. Do you think grading should have been A for effort? Because like in real life, and I didn't tell this to you when we were planning the course, and I'm sorry, but in real life, like, it almost is A for effort. If I show up to do voiceover and I'm late and I'm sloppy and like I don't do a very good job, I'm not going to get hired again. And part of that is my technical ability to do voiceover, and part of it is like showing up 15 minutes early, being being professional, all that sort of stuff, which is does kind of seem like A for effort. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, if I could, so I've had to think about this a lot for the course I teach at MIT, and it's a huge, huge issue because, so who should get the better grade? The person who has a huge amount of talent and experience as a filmmaker or a video maker, sloughs it, just like lays back throughout the whole course, but does a really nice piece at the end. Yeah. Or the person who never has done it before, doesn't necessarily have a whole lot on the ball when it comes to media production, but just works and works and works and comes out with something that's, kind of mediocre. Yeah. Just because by the nature of having never done it before. That's really the issue. When you're dealing with non-professionals, that's when, because I completely agree with you. This is the Woody Allen thing, right? Like, most of life is showing up. Yeah. And it's totally true. But when you're dealing with this huge, huge learning curve, it becomes very, very tricky. So what we do, we don't do quite A for effort, but we do kind of allow an out. If your final project, which is a big part of your grade, goes completely haywire and just falls apart on you, you can write a fairly substantial paper that describes what your intents were, or what your thought process was, what went wrong, why it went wrong, what you would have done differently. And so essentially, you do have a way of supplementing or making up for this innate problem you had, which was that you didn't know what the hell you were doing. Which is a problem.
It's fairly innate for me.
Well, 2 of the course values were challenge, and a lot of that manifested in the rubric in the final project and the graded assignments as, is there improvement from the previous iteration? Mm-hmm. Is this person going outside of their comfort zone? And then thoughtfulness, like, can you tell that this person has integrated some of the things we've talked about in class, whether it's through their blog posts or just like office hour reflections, things like that. So that was built into the final grades. But then I would also say that the graded sort of quality projects and the daily reflections were weighted pretty equally, so that if you had a student, which we did, who had the skills but didn't do the daily blogs, their grade would suffer a little bit more, just as much as someone who did the daily blogs and just could not host, for instance. In the end, it worked out by doing that way. Like all the students who I thought deserved great grades because I knew they worked really hard, got good grades, and all the students who were very technically skilled still got decent grades, but it wasn't like they got 100 or anything. It's always a tough challenge, though.
My math teacher used to say, we'd be like, how are you going to grade this test? And he'd be like, well, I'm going to blindfold myself, turn around, and throw darts behind my back. We were like, okay, yeah, good, that's good.
I just wish I could have written a paper in chemistry class in college, to make up for the...
For my experiment went south, and here's what happened. Yeah.
MIT students, they want to know, what do I need to do to...
Exactly. People are very focused on achievement, doing well.
Yeah.
Which is why I was very conscious of creating as specific of a rubric as I can.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when, as you said before, because this is a form of art, and there is no right or wrong answer.
Right.
So how do you?
But you can tell someone, look, you didn't change anything from your first draft, so you're going to get docked for points on challenge, as the rubric says.
Yeah.
Or you just straight up didn't do a blog reflection, so you're getting a 0 on that section. But at least, I do think that there has to be something tangible to go back to, that you can't just sort of arbitrarily assign a grade. Yeah. I will say that, at the end of the day, a grade assessment should be a reflection, or should be there to help students improve. And I do think that the value in assessment and feedback came from just sort of one-on-one when you all worked with the students directly. And that's something that's not captured on the open courseware class, but I would stay with Jamie and our TA Sari for at least 2 hours every day after class, just talking with students, and you would work with them, and when you and John came to do the workshop, you just have direct interaction with the students. I really think that's where the most value came from. I don't know how you all feel about that.
Yeah, I thought that workshop was great, by the way. I didn't get a chance to tell you, but
Thanks.
it's really nice.
Yeah. I thought it was just great to interact with the students. I think, I wasn't immediately sure how engaged they were, but I had some sense of it when I would actually just sort of sit down with them and they would directly ask me questions, and there was that sort of direct engagement. And I guess that is, one would question how this course could be done electronically or via some kind of distance learning or that kind of thing, because that seemed invaluable to me. That kind of personal contact. So.
If you're a teacher in Missouri, for instance, how can you teach this course without a Chris, without a George, and without a Josh?
There are versions of us in Missouri.
There are.
Yeah. I have an alter
Oh,
ego
you
in
said
every
something
state.
nice about my home state. It's on camera, too. But really, again, you can watch the open courseware stuff to get a sense of just, they're just fundamental facts, I guess, that you should become aware of.
Yeah.
But, I gave a mid-point survey to the students of, what lectures have you found most helpful? And they were all all of them. Chris's was really helpful because I got his perspective as a filmmaker, as someone who, was and still is in the industry. And then, working with Planet Nutshell, they were like, oh, I had no idea how to storyboard, and it was way more helpful than just watching a video of someone do it. We were actually interacting with them. And your hosting workshop, how do you give hosting feedback not in real time, not live? I don't know.
Yeah, I just remember sitting down with a couple of students, and I think students were running their ideas by by both of us, maybe me individually and John, and just giving sort of direct creative feedback on, well, I think that could work, but have you thought about doing this? And then that would spur them to further sort of creative thinking, and that kind of interaction, that relationship seemed invaluable.
And the one-on-one interaction. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really, there's a lot of, I've thought about that too. I mean, maybe the equivalent of crowdsourcing or something, but most of the valuable experiences I had as a student and that I think I've had with students as a teacher are really not even in the classroom, but one-on-one.
Oh yeah, I mean, the most of the experiences I remember most powerfully are being at office hours,
Exactly.
and having a teacher ask me like, so do you really think you're gonna be an English major?
Well, and particularly in media or video, I mean, where you're, it's like you have this work, it's a piece of crap, and someone's going to sit there and help you turn it into something else, and just to learn what can be done to a script, to something that's been shot and not edited the way it could be. I mean, it's a really powerful experience.
Yeah, definitely. So I wonder. I mean, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just wonder if the balance. I don't know how I don't have a complete picture of how the course was balanced because I wasn't there the whole time. But I wonder if there could be more opportunity for that kind of one-on-one interaction.
It's very short, right? That's the challenge.
Yeah.
It's such a short class.
Yeah.
Like some kind of critique or workshop that like maybe we all attended, and gave thoughts on.
And for the students who worked with us in production week, that was a lot of one-on-one.
Oh, I bet.
A lot of
I bet you
one-on-one.
guys.
Or like 3-on-1 in that case,
Yeah.
But there again, I mean, there's for production week, it was it's like you don't spend 2 hours being like, here's why your hosting was non-optimal. You just tell them what to do to fix it quickly so you can get the next shot, But that still is valuable because you still see how a professional does it, and like you're there and you're doing it. You're not just sitting there watching. You are. Without you, the show doesn't run. Without the student, the show doesn't run. So they have to do it.
A couple of the students who did Science Out Loud, they waited to write their final blog reflection until after they shot.
Really?
So they were like, I wanted to wait to see like how different it would be from the class, and like even in that one day I learned so much, like more than I did in the 2 weeks of the class, right? Just like being in that production setting. Sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
Something I wanted to mention is, again, like this kind of thing isn't scalable. Like we can't spend one-on-one time with 20 students. It was manageable because there were only like 7 or 8 of them at a given time, thank goodness. Initially we were like, we're gonna blow it up, maybe like 24 students. Oh my gosh, no. It was a struggle to keep up, even though our teaching team is huge, just because it is such an intensive process to work with them one-on-one. But what I did want to make use of their peer-to-peer learning and support, and somehow I don't exactly know how this got fostered, but we really had a nice class environment. The students were very supportive of each other, which was really nice, maybe because it was such a small class. But during the second week they would go off in groups to shoot each other, and they would give advice to each other, which was awesome. I would overhear some really great directorial advice, but I would also overhear some advice that'd be like, no, like don't make them host, like don't make them have that intonation. And I wouldn't say anything because I think it was important for their learning experience. But that's what I mean by, there's only so much you can do with people in the same sort of learning sphere teaching each other.
Well, it's a very short. I mean, so much of what this class is like is characterized by the fact that it's so short. Because the cohort thing is so important. And I mean, as someone who, I'll confess, went to art school. I know. Sorry, MIT people. But so I went to NYU, the graduate film program, 3-year program. So the first year of that program is kind of like the first couple of lectures in your class, right? It's all class-based. Everyone, you feel like your head is exploding with all this stuff. And you're hanging on your professor's every word, and it's like kind of transformational. After that, it's kind of pointless to go to class. It doesn't really matter what happens in the class. It's all about the cohort, and it's all about what you do outside of class and the help and support you give each other as you make these iterative projects. So it kind of takes over and becomes the thing, the only thing. The relationship of the students with each other, critiquing each other's work, working on each other's projects. The rest of it, once you kind of have the basics, the basic conceptual framework.
Yeah, it's like learn by doing.
Yeah, it's all learn by doing after that.
Yeah.
The problem is because it's a 2-week or 3-week class,
Yeah, exactly.
or even a semester, or even a year. At MIT, I mean, these students they're nowhere near expert. Not saying that we are, right? But there's only so much that they can be aware of with each other.
Totally,
that it was a weird balance to strike.